Hi everybody, thank you for watching my presentation. This is the Ohio Department of Youth Services Buckeye United School District. We have a couple of different mission statements. The Department of Youth Service has a mission statement, and also the Buckeye School System has a mission statement. Buckeye United Schools are three schools. The district has three schools. We have three institutions. Our youth are 24/7 residential, so we have a huge spectrum of cultures, beliefs, our education, economic diversity. We're going to go into all of that when we start talking about demographics. But ultimately our goal is to have safer communities and have youth who are successful and who find a future through us. Department of Youth Services operates in all 88 counties, and we work under the governance of all 88 courts and judicial services. Our schools, the Buckeye United School District, encompass Cuyahoga County, which is where one of our institutions is. One of our institutions is more centrally located in Stark County, and then in Pickaway County is our other institution. We do also oversee several contract facilities throughout the state, but those all work in their school systems that are respective of the communities. As I said, Buckeye School has its own mission statement. Its vision is to change students' lives through excellence in education. 88 counties are served by the Ohio Department of Youth Services and Buckeye United School District. All of our youths, Department of Youth Services is well and above, the population is well and above the regular norm for trauma. Within most youths across the country, we may see about 35% of those involved with certain traumas. Youths in correctional facilities are closer to 85%. Trauma can be anything from abuse in the home to seeing a family member shot and killed, violence on the streets, neglect, sexual abuse. So this creates a lot of challenges for us. We do offer education for grades 6 through 12 and remedial education for those who come in at below that grade level. Our classes are year-round. We do have 4 intersessions throughout the year, and that's when we invite communities in to help us out, such as Freedom Schools. Our curriculum is standards-based, and we do meet Ohio core requirements. And like I was telling you before about some of those dynamics of the family, let's look at those numbers. Our average annual income for the head of household, parent, or guardian is approximately $23,000. Of that, the head of household, parent, or guardian, 83% will have a high school diploma and or have received a GED. 6% will have had some college or be a college graduate, while the other 11% have received some amount of technical school or no degree, no further schooling. 96% of these homes that these kids come from are single-parent homes, working mother or working aunt or working grandma. And of that number, 1 in 8 who do have an involved father in the home. 1 out of every 8 families might have a father. As of 2015, our admissions rate, total average daily population is 473. We subtract from that some of our community corrections facilities or our contract facilities because those educate the kids in their community. So looking at what the Buckeye United School System does is probably more like 425, thereabouts. The average education level at admission is around the 9th grade. Of the admissions in 2015, 96% did require education, meaning they had not achieved their GED or high school diplomas yet. Of those youth that we have in our population, 48% do require some form of special education or individualized education plans. 46% will be on a mental health caseload, which could include a diagnosis of depression, PTSD, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, psychoses, some spectrum of autism. Our population looks like this. We have about 60.3% African American, 31.4% are white, 8.3% other, meaning Asian, biracial, Hispanic, and undeclared. 7.7% of the population is female, and it speaks to the contract facilities because all of our females are in outside of our 3 institutions that I was discussing outside of the Buckeye United School Systems. The average age of our youth when they come to us is 17.7. The time that they spend in the institution and attending our school is just a little over a year. So of course that's a challenge for us. We have kids who walk in the door halfway through a class. We have kids who walk out the door before they've finished a class, all to return to the community or to come from the community. Then there's also an element of parole supervision while in the community, and that's just under 11 months there. Department of Youth Services does have some accomplishments in 2015, and of the 3 institutions, we awarded 27 GEDs. Those cost about $120 each, and we do pay for that. We also pay for higher education while they're in the institution with us through a program, a partnership with Ashland Community College. We also have 25 high school diplomas that were awarded, and we do have graduation ceremonies in which family and community are invited. We have 522 career tech certifications, so if you look at our population, it's pretty obvious. We've got some kids there getting more than one certification, and that's fantastic. But even more boasting is 10,000 plus hours of community service. So that's restorative justice in place, and we hope it helps these youths to develop a commitment for community service. When we talk about communication, DYS does have targeted mailings which go to parents, to the courts and community, to the Public Defender's Office, Office of Victim Services, the schools, and numerous other areas there. Also, our representatives in the community are our parole officers. Those parole officers do go into the home and they visit with the family. They encourage the family to maintain communications with their youth by providing services such as webcam meetings or bus trips that go out to the institutions or phone calls. Our representatives also attend court hearings. We also attend meetings with the community when it comes to treatment plans that we want to develop for our children when they return home. We also look at partnering with news media such as National Public Radio and major news outlets like The Plain Dealer. These guys give us some really positive PR, which helps to negate the institutional think of corrections and juvenile corrections and what some people might see on the street and what they might think about corrections in general. Department of Youth Services also has its own social media. We have our own website, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel. You'll see those addresses there on the graphic displayed. Now, when we talk about community partnerships and community groups that come in and help us out, we have to keep in mind that our juveniles all have a certain amount of privacy which we have to protect for them. This is mandated by Ohio Revised Code. Buckeye School District also complies with FERPA and HIPAA. And our community partners also sign an agreement and non-disclosure agreement for our youths to protect their identities. The churches are one of our favorite organizations to work with. They bring religious services into the institution, bring specialized services. They also provide mentoring both in the institution and in the community. Not only do they provide community service, but they give us an outlet for our youths to continue to help the community out through the churches. Colleges and institutions also help us by introducing educational alternatives to the youth. We have the Buckeye Reach program, which comes through Ohio State University, and Freedom Schools that comes in and helps our youth with their reading, which is really important for us. Businesses offer their services through vocational training, and they also open up their doors to our well-adjusted youth for off-campus jobs. And we do have one business in Cleveland, which is actually all run by youth and institution. Social welfare that's financed usually through grants or private donations also offers services that we network with to help us obtain substance abuse, family counseling, independent living for those 18 and older that are coming out, and mental health services. Grants and partnerships, we're constantly seeking out those grants and those revenue streams that will help us to come up with ways to create more mentorship opportunities, the reentry planning, youth coming back into the community, and also, as I mentioned before, allow us to help to finance those vocational and college scholarships for our youth. DYS also supports 600 community programs through its Reclaim, serving 80,000 youth each year. And we work with our community partners and offer 6 apprenticeship programs and 22 certification programs. Here we have the aquaponics program, which is about sustainability and learning how to manage a business to be sustainable. Buckeye United School Districts operate in accordance with the Ohio Department of Education, excuse me. And our school administrators, however, are under the direct supervision of the director of our agency, who is probably more interested in the juvenile justice side of things than he is the education side, so you could see the conflict that might exist there. DYS's identity is contingent on the political landscape. Our director is an appointee and direct from the governor, an appointee, so that can make big differences to us. And in addition, state and local levels elections influence populations and influence our population makeup and the level of care. When new judges are appointed, new ideas come to the bench. New commitments, new sentencing, new treatment, new recommendations and mandates. Our school districts also influenced by organizations such as the American Correctional Association and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, agencies which community leaders characteristics. Again, everything about this presentation is a bit more unconventional than you might normally see in the school system. What we're looking at in the leadership structure in the community will be law enforcement, our courts, the coordinators of various social programs in the community. Local and state elected officials that we might be looking at as leaders will be our mayors, our sheriffs, our judges, people appointed to benches, appointed to positions in the community. One of the biggest struggles that we have would be school board inconsistencies, changes in school boards or school boards that have different rules. We deal with 611 school districts in Ohio. Part of the problem with that is some of them send us transcripts and some of them don't. Some of us help us with reintegration and some of them don't. So our parole officers in the region, who continue to be our representatives, work with these things, and they meet with our courts, with our families, and school officials to try to make reentry smoother. Networking with the power brokers are high-level, top-level Department of Youth Services professional relationships with those political and community leaders. And that's sometimes how we can get things done, when these people reach out through their personal contacts. Here we have one of our classes where the youth are learning how to manage and maintain this is a self-sustaining community that they have here that has minimal impact on the environment. So they're working on their economic conditions with Department of Youth Service. The way that we look at our economic conditions, we might look at census data. It helps us to determine size of a caseload, and saturation of the funding can be affected by that. Social welfare services can influence economic conditions there because fewer services available in smaller areas. When there's not a large population to service, there's not a lot of money that's provided there. Budgetary constraints and monies are often fluctuating, so they may be finite. Challenges of employment in the area include for the youth and for their families, their major income holders, will be lack of transportation, lack of opportunities in the community. Skills levels and education levels can affect that. Specific to urban areas, we look at homelessness, at guns, gangs and drugs, and a lack of life skills. There's all challenges that our students have to face and that we have to help them work with. So when we're talking about the political structure of Department of Youth Services in the Buckeye School District, we are in fact a political animal, and we can't operate without politics. The revenue stream runs like this. Most of school districts, you're probably used to, you're going to get funded mostly through your taxes, state taxes, property taxes, however. DYS also works with taxes through the General Revenue Fund, and we also receive direct payments from the individual school districts from which our children come from. The revenue streams might include grant funding, federal initiatives such as the Last Chance Act, or individuals with disabilities in education. But DYS also reinvests back in the community with the Reclaim program that I discussed earlier. The acronym there, Reasonable and Equitable Community and Local Alternatives to Incarceration of Minors. I think somebody came up with the name first and then thought, what do we say that that's an acronym for? So returning money back to the community and trying to keep youths in their community. That's what we're looking at there. Social tensions in the institution are wide and varied and not quite what you might think. We do have a minority white population. You might consider this to be an issue, but it's not really high on our list, though there is racial tension and most of our white population feels a bit intimidated when they come in the door. They generally find their place. What we really have a problem with is what's called security threat groups or gangs. Gangs, of course, are very territorial, and when we bring 3 institutions for the entire state, it means we're definitely bringing together lots of different gangs. So sometimes they're vying to see who's, in charge of the institution. We do a really good job of keeping this in check and actually trying to change the mindset by creating the substitute for those types of needs that they have, the people that are gang involved, and looking for those intrinsic needs that they're looking for. So we try to replace those and come up with much more pro-social methods of doing that. One of the things that is an issue are the types of offenses that come in. We have such a wide and varied selection of offenses to include gun specifications, aggravated robbery, murder. We have sex offenders. We have it's quite a laundry list of felony offenses, and they're all higher level offenses. That's how you get to the state level of criminal justice. And some of these things just don't mix together, especially in a 24/7 dorm situation or in a very small classroom. You'll bring together the sex offenders, or you'll bring together the substance abusers, which are really, for the most part, low-level offenders. And sometimes that can be an issue when we mix those together. Age disparities is also a problem because our population, again, is blended. We don't have separation by age, and our ages actually range from, we actually can receive youth as young as 13 years old. We have several youth right now that are 14 years old, and then the age goes all the way up to age 21, which becomes the age of an adult here in Ohio. So you know how immature kids are at 14, and yet we have immature kids at age 21 too. So we also do see a certain level of the LGBTQI community, and this can cause some issues, and we try to be sensitive with this. It's very difficult in this environment for a kid that's this different. And some of them are quite open about it and they make out really well, and some of them simply don't feel like there's anybody they can talk to, so staff does their best to help them out where they can. Almost all of these youth, as I discussed earlier, have had some kind of trauma, most of them coming from one-parent homes with no father figure or male role model in their life that's positive. There's a lot of anger that's involved, and that anger is often comes out in ways that are inappropriate in the classroom. Diagnosis, again, we talked about the mental health issues and med compliance there, and behaviors that result from those various diagnoses. All of these things we attempt to address through conflict resolution and through the use of verbal strategies. We, staff and teachers, always want to present that model of what's the best way to do things. And the best way to do things is to talk it out, to work on these things, to be empathetic towards the other viewpoint, and try to find the common goal. So we're definitely, none of us want to get hurt, staff or youth. So it's always about trying to work things out. We look at extra sources of information, and here I'm going to just present to you a laundry list of resources that we use. Some of these resources are internal, maintained by Department of Youth Services, and a lot of them are external. We look at the State of Ohio Library. We look at the Department of Justice. All of these things and more are out there, but this is just a few of them. Power structure is an interesting situation, again, when we're talking about an agency whose purveyance is statewide. those structures that we're looking at within the school, the one-on-one conflicts between staff and teachers, peers and teachers, you know, people who just have those petty conflicts, or there might be some very real conflicts as a result of teaching styles or philosophies. Another very real situation are the youth versus staff power struggles that go on. Youth, especially your oppositional defiant, is going to try to take advantage of the educational professionals, you know, the desire to help people out. I mean, teachers just have a far more open mind, and they're more willing to accept the goodness in people somehow or other. I don't know why, but you will definitely see youth who try to take advantage of that. So there's some level of classroom management that has to go on there, and we have to have some definite boundaries there. Staff versus administration, that just like anywhere else, line staff know how to do things best, quote unquote, and you know, we've always done it this way, kind of dynamic. To some extent, of course, they're right. So we have to always listen to staff, and administrators sometimes don't do a very good job of that. We also have to understand that administration quite frequently is getting their orders from higher up. Ultimately, where it all comes down to is the state Senate floor, where we're making statutes and laws, and a lot of those regulatory changes and political influences affect confinement credit for use and how long they stay in the institution. They affect the mandatory statute for a gun specification. We're constantly seeing changes. At some point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a change in the age of juvenile offenders for the state of Ohio. And if they're going to look at, in California, the age is 25. In other states, the age is 17. So there might be something coming out of that. We talk about the multicultural issues, and that's also a place that's not, we actually rejoice in this because we don't have a huge population that's that diverse, but we do have some youths that have certain restrictions and have certain practices. We, of course, don't promote one religion over another, but we do have to make room for these practices because, again, this is a living situation. It's 24/7. We have to find a way to accommodate special needs with regard to religion. But we also like to encourage difference, encourage diversity, encourage originality. We have we have a young man who wrote a play, and I believe they did some auditions for it last week, and they're going to be putting that play on sometime this month. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Another youth provided me with a sample of his book that he's writing, and encourage him with looking at avenues for how to get that published, whether it be, you know, digitally or even if it's just word of mouth. He gets out art shows. We've had our youths create art for us, and they've sold that art at auction with proceeds going to local charities. Constantly trying to give these kids a good sense of themselves, a much better image for themselves that they can see, and all the while trying to teach them how to work within the confines of a structured environment, because even when they come out, there's structure that has to be involved. And because with every presentation I have, I like to boast about our talented youth, here are just a few of the pieces of artwork that they've given us. When we talk about measuring public opinion, you can take any type of web search and be able to find something about your school district there. So that's one way to measure the public opinion. Here we have the U.S. News and World Report on the Buckeye United School District, and you can probably see there that between mathematics and reading, we're failing in all three of those. Our population is very challenged, but we rise to the challenge, and we'll continue to prove those numbers. The public opinion can definitely be measured in the political process. Our voting public is going to eventually put out those poor performers, and hopefully The people that we're getting in are the people that reflect the desires of the community and what we want to see. Everybody in the community looks around them and they see whose house has been robbed, or they look on the news and they see, you know, what's been going on as far as gang violence or, you know, robberies in the neighborhood. Everybody's looking out for the community. Public opinion is expressed in that. We see that through community forums, through organizations that are activists in protecting their neighborhoods. So we get that feedback from them. Also, we follow the best practice evidence. Universities are always providing us with data and information and new ways of doing things. We look at risk measurements. We look at recidivism rates. There's all kinds of areas where you can look, and when the public sees that you're utilizing these new ideas and creating new ideas because you want to get things right, you know that if it's not working, you gotta change it. So when the public sees that evidence of best practice, it certainly makes a difference in public opinion. As I said before, research can also bring out the public opinion and what's going on in the community, get a pulse for what's going on there. We also have for each of our youth and their families exit surveys when a youth is released from the institution, and then again when the youth is discharged from parole, so when they've completed everything. Criminal justice organizations and institutes, again, they aggregate data. A lot of it's for their own research and for their papers that they write, but they willingly share it with us because we provide them with the raw data. And so University of Cincinnati, Ohio State University, Case Western Reserve, lots of folks with criminal justice programs like to form partnerships with us, and they help us out while we help them out. We also have the Public Defender's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and our own legal department, which also provides a method of feedback through the grievance process. So that is my story, and I hope that you stuck with me to the end. I appreciate your listening in. If you have any further questions, I think it's an interesting topic. Maybe you don't. But feel free to leave your questions in the comments. Thanks so much for hanging in there.